Listen, the decision to pursue a career in technology can be both exciting and daunting. Now, with so many paths to choose from, it's important to carefully consider your options and make informed decisions about your future. From areas of specialization to the benefits of working in tech, there are a plethora of factors to take into account as you embark on the journey of tech. And that is assuming as youths you want to go into tech. And when it comes to starting a tech career, one of the first decisions you need to make is which path to take. Will you focus on software development, cybersecurity, data analysis, or another area of specialization? Now, each path offers its own unique challenges and opportunities, so it's very crucial to consider your skills, consider your interests, and your long-term goals when making this decision. That's why today we'll look at the nitty-gritty of launching a career in technology and how, as youths, we can battle unemployment through the tech world. Now, as a youth in tech, you can expect to work in a fast-paced, dynamic environment that is constantly evolving, because that's what tech is about. You need to stay up to date on the latest technologies and the latest trends and be prepared to adapt to new challenges as they arise. However, the benefits of working in tech can be substantial, from competitive salaries and opportunities to career advancement to the satisfaction of being at the forefront of innovation and change. And that's what every youth wants. Now, in today's digital world, technology plays a crucial role in shaping our society and our politics. Now, we are going to be looking at this show together, and it's important to consider the impact of technology on the issues and the discussions that we'll be addressing, from privacy concerns and cybersecurity to the role of social media in shaping public opinions. That said, I'm now joined by my guest, Otis Umude, the CEO, iFem International. Thank you so much, Otis, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
He's also the creator of GoSpeed Hub. Thank you, Otis, once again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We're talking about launching into the tech space and generally just tackling unemployment through tech. Now, as a tech person yourself, how has technology influenced the political landscape in recent years?
Well, you look at, I think last election we had the system that electronic voting. Now, in this part of the world, you could clearly see how there was a little bit of issue, but we can see how that system can work. But in other part of the world, you know, technology has been introduced in the voting system, in registration, you know, without being there. Also, voting absentee ballots. Without you being in your state, you can actually vote, and your vote will count. So those are ways that technology has been introduced when it comes to in the political arena.
So for you who are still thinking of what path they want to take, what would you say, how best would you say they can decide which path they want to tour in life?
So there are multiple different fields to go in. The mistake most individuals make is when someone has a training or someone goes through a training course and start working and say, oh, I'm making money, I'm doing cybersecurity, and they jump into it. The best approach is to find out what fields are available out there. You have cybersecurity, you have data analyst, you have a cloud engineer, you have AI engineer, IoT engineer, a few others around there like project management, you know, and a few others around. So what the best approach is, find out what each one of those fields involve. What is the day-to-day job like? What is the certification requirement, the degree requirement? And also, what's the pay like? You want to make sure, you know, the pay fits what you're doing. What's the career advancement if you're looking to go up the lane of the chain of command? You know, so these are things you want to really study and see which one suits you best. Making money is great, but if you're not fulfilled in doing what you're doing, then you're going to be miserable, right? So it's always best to find out what each one really takes and know that your day-to-day job is something that you can easily do when you embark on that journey.
And as a person in tech as well, what can youths expect, you know, with working as a tech person, both the good sides and the bad sides and the challenging sides?
Well, there are some drawbacks if you're in Nigeria. We actually have a tech firm in the US, and that's where I'm based. And the one advantage we have is uninterrupted power supply and uninterrupted data. So we could be anywhere, anytime, and we could just do our work. But in Nigeria, we do have a limitation here and there, which we've seen an increase of solar to kind of combat power, and we're seeing, a few other data connections that are more steady to give you that uninterrupted supply of internet. So the one advantage in working in the tech field is you could work almost anywhere in the world. All you need, again, like I said, is power and internet connection, and you could do your job. The other advantage is the pay is quite lucrative, and depending on what industry you go in, there is job security also. Not just only within the country, but you could be in Nigeria and be hired almost anywhere in the world.
Okay, but in looking at African countries, for example, what would you say are the major drawbacks that hinder people from considering tech?
Number one is education. I think we don't educate our people enough on where the industry is going, what the new world order looks like. As we all know, those who are in the tech space, they will tell you data is king. It's no longer gold. The more data every company have of their customer, of their client, the more they can upsell or introduce new products. So when you look at data, what the data involves, right? You want to mine that data of your customers, understand them very well to know how to sell. That means you need a storage, that's cloud engineer. You want to also protect their data from being compromised, that's cybersecurity. You want to run some analytics to understand their behavior, their habits. That's where data mining comes in and data scientist comes in. You want to also do some predictive modeling based on habits of where they're going to do in the future. That's AI right there. So I'm just giving you just in one area, you can see how many fields are involved in that. I think more training, more podcasts, more news like this, telling people what is out there, what the future looks like, and so they can be more informed and more aware of where they want to take their career to.
All right, now I want to believe that people do not just dabble into tech. What are the step-by-step procedures of getting, let's say, a youth out there wants to go into tech and doesn't even know where to start from? What are the processes of getting into tech industry? So
we're in a digital age right now where you could almost get some level of training for free. Not all, but some level. The first place I always say to start is either ask a friend or you go on YouTube. Just type YouTube on Google and just ask any question. How to start a tech career, how to embark on this journey. And you will see a guide that kind of shows you the fields that are out there related to tech. Now, the one good thing about tech is it falls in almost any industry. In the healthcare sector, in finance, in education, in pharmaceutical, in a few other, in politics also too. So you want to look at it from that standpoint. Once you see the different fields that are out there, you want to do a deep dive and watch a few videos of what each one takes. Once you've done that, the next step you might want to do is look for a mentor. Look for CEOs, executives who are in that field, kind of follow the social media, follow the company's social media handles to see what they're out there. And then look for reputable training programs. Sometimes some of this pathway you're trying to take, they have certifications. So you want to look for those schools that offer those training and certifications and also follow them and see what they have available and the free resources available to you so you can actually use that to get a better understanding of where you want to go. So once you've done that, now you've narrowed down the few fields you might be interested in. This is where you need to sit down with a mentor, a coach, life coach, or career and kind of tell them what you want to do. And based on your personality, on the income you're looking for, the lifestyle you want to live, the work flexibility, if there is any, to kind of embark in that journey. So that's the kind of steps you want to take.
All right. Now, still talking about going into tech and the confusion that surrounds it, there has been a debate as to how a youth can balance the passion they have with the need for financial growth, if you know what I mean. That's talking about either going for passion or going for money, when you know that when you go for passion, it's not so easy. It's not going to be a smooth ride, So a lot of times people just gear towards doing something because of the financial benefits associated with it. What would you have to say about that?
So this is one thing I always come up every single time I'm being asked. Passion or money? Everyone is at different phase of their life. Some individuals might be living with someone where they're not paying any rent or paying any bills. So they might have the enough time to actually chase their passion and go after that for a few years before start seeing the money come. Some would feel, I'm all alone, I have no help, I need to make that money immediately to get going. So, end of the day, I always say this, I know it's hard in this part of the world, but the one thing I always say is your passion is always first. Yes, you're going for the money, you want to earn a good living, you want to earn a good lifestyle, but I've seen people who make lots of money and are still miserable because they're not chasing their passion, they're not doing what drives them. You can make all the money, but when you look back and see, does that really give you fulfillment, does it really give you satisfaction? If that works for you, then that's fine. But most end up, when you chase your passion, the days when the struggle comes, when you're having issue at work, what you know is your passion, you could ride those waves because you're in it for the long run. But if it's just after the money, you could easily quit and give up, which is what we see some people doing sometimes. So it's again, I'm not going to direct anybody in one way or the other, but it's always advisable to look and see at your current situation and see what is best for you. But in the long run, always try and chase your passion.
All right, now talking about the technology in itself, right? We see that technology has helped in a lot of ways in this generation, but there's still some areas or there's some people who still do not have access to technology as they should. How can the government or the society balance up that equation where some people have access to more technology or more access to technology than others? And this is how, when you have equal access, that's how youths can make informed decision as to whether or not. You can't tell people who do not even have access to technology to go into the tech space. So what is your thought on that?
So my thought on that is it's going to be more of a government and private sector. The government alone cannot do it. If you look around the world, the government alone have not been able to sustain any country without the private investors coming in. But where the government can come in is have all these major firms who are invested in this company to have a certain percentage of doing training, hands-on training, going to the community in the most remote area and doing demonstration of different gadgets that they have. I still do right now, go to conferences, seminars, webinars, and most of those that I do in the US, they are more hands-on training. So I get to feel gadgets like 3D glasses, 3D printing, the new Facebook Ray-Ban glasses, the virtual reality, the car race seats and things like that. So those were things I did all throughout my life. And that's what drove me into my field. And also I think the educational system too can also try, maybe in the secondary school area and also in university, they can introduce a few of these gadgets during labs. That way individuals who are coming up can see hands-on of what those technology feels like to get a better hand. When I was in high school, which I think secondary school here, when I was in secondary school back in the US, I was actually manufacturing phones and putting phones together. That was my first introduction of how a phone can work. And before I graduated, I was also working with writing codes, putting an assembly line and microchips. So that gave me experience right in secondary school that allowed me to pick engineering and IT for my college degree to pursue that. So those are things I think the government can do.
Okay, now I would also like to ask, how are emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain likely to impact lives in the future? What's the general benefit of technology in a few years to come?
So there's a disadvantage and there's always an advantage. And you want to go more for the advantage. Disadvantage is when you get more engaged, you rely heavy on technology, you kind of lose touch of personal sense of belonging and having that physical interaction. I know back in the days, you used to write letters, and post mails and things of that nature. And you wait for that letter to come and you kind of cherish it. Now you could just send a text message, right, without even worrying about that. So there is an advantage and disadvantage. But in the new world that we live in, the advantage is having data faster and making, for a business case, having real data real time, you can allow your business to think faster and know how to manage resources. One example, if you know you're going to have 200 customers coming every Wednesday, and you need at least 20 staff to beef it up. But the very next day, you're seeing the traffic slowly goes down. You don't want to have too many employees on site without enough clients to take care of them for that day. So based on technology, you can kind of see how many staff you're getting day by day, how many customers are coming through your doors or even using your service. And based on that, you can now decide if to beef up more staff or reduce your staff on a particular given day. So that is one advantage we've seen technology come. Another area we've seen AI especially is when you look at all these chatbots, I don't know how many companies are doing that here, but in Nigeria, but in the US, we used to have a lot of customer service text you back and forth. So most of those frequently asked questions have now been embedded into a chat box. So when you chat with a company right now, the first thing is the AI that speaks to you. Based on questions being asked, it speaks back the answer to you. Eventually, if it cannot answer your question, that's when it transfers you to a live operator. So those are the advantage of having AI introduced in your business and in the world.
Right. Now, we have looked at the advantage, and I would like for us to look at something that has, caused a scare for a lot of youth as well in this, with the emergence of technology and as it keeps progressing. And that is automation and job displacement, in the sense that a lot of people are scared that technology, for example, AI, is here to take away people's jobs. So you see people that work in customer care, for example, robots can now do that. People who do visual art, robots can do that as well, writing scripts and basically almost everything. And there's that fear that in the next few years, more people will lose their jobs to AI. What's your thought?
So yeah, some jobs are going to be lost. That's just the nature of what we live in, right? Back in the days, we saw how many mail carriers were frequent. Now you don't see a lot of mails. You see more dispatchers, right? Because of parcels and stuff like that. So what I always tell people is, don't be afraid of what you're going to lose. Look at what you stand to gain. The world is changing. You don't want to get left behind, right? You see companies embedding this technology into their process. In agriculture right now, you have technology equipment that tells you how often to actually water your lawn, your veggies, not just anytime. It gives you that temperature. It tells you how when to water it and how much water to pour into the land. So that it's coming. It's here already. We are not going back to the Stone Age. The best advice is, rather than looking from a fear standpoint of losing your job, but look at how that has been infused in your field of studies or your industry, either healthcare, pharmaceutical, education, and see how can you work and beef your knowledge in those areas so you will be employable in the very near future.
Right. Now, also talking about, the advantages and disadvantages, we're also looking at the lack of adequate education, like you did mention earlier, for these youths. A lot of people are reluctant to accept technology because they do not know about technology. But if you're looking at the difference between African countries and some other Western countries, even those who are willing to accept, or go into tech, they do not have necessary equipment or infrastructure. You talked about electricity and things like that. What can the government do to encourage acceptance of tech and going into tech generally?
I think one of the areas the government can come in is have more tech hub sponsored by the government, where individuals can come in and train and get better equipment. If you have a company like Cisco or these big firms that come to the U.S., mandate them to have some portion allocated to do free training or having the resources needed to help the youth. So that's where I think the government can come in and help in those areas, because individually it's hard to really sponsor those things over long term, but the government can actually make allocations for those things.
So what are certain government policies that are made available in other countries that we do not have in Africa that enables these people in other countries to fully harness their tech skills?
Well, number one, when a company wants to do a partnership with either the federal government or the state, like in the U.S., some rally around that could tell them, okay, you want to make sure this contract you're getting, 10% is invested back into the economy, into that region. And that consist of a bunch of different things. It could be providing housing, it could be providing training. So one of the things that individuals can rally for, if you see a new company coming into the country or to your region, you can work with the local government or the federal government and ask them to have some portion allocated for training, thereby beefing up the skills of those locally to those areas.
All right, on that note, we are going to wrap up this segment. Thank you so much, Otis Umude, the CEO, iFem International, and of course, creator of GoSpeed Hub. Thank you for your insights on the world of tech, and we do hope that more youths embrace, the emergence of technology, and that the government helps to nurture, the interest in tech as well. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.